Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. In today's episode, we're going to continue on with the detailing projects in and around the city of New Sunderland. Now, in the last couple of episodes, we've been spending some time hanging around the inner city, and in the last episode, we were down here at the docks. So I thought maybe it was time for maybe a bit of a change of pace, maybe spend the day out at the beach. Perhaps maybe even at one of these little islands here that dot the bay. The area I'm going to be working on is coming into view right now. And when I started this area 8 months ago, the biggest problem was I really lacked the assets I needed to make it work. And with what's available now, I think it's time to come back and take a second look at the spot and see what we can make. I'm very happy with the results, and I'm excited to show them off. My name is Geifs, and let's get started. So when I started this area 8 months ago, I really envisioned it as like a wealthy community with very well-off people. Unfortunately, 8 months ago, the assets we had available really were lacking. And once I started it, I quickly realized that I really didn't have the type of buildings I needed in order to make it work. Now with the asset packs that have come out, I think it's a good time to come back and revisit it. I certainly have buildings available now that are much more suitable for this sort of build, and it's time for, make a proper attempt at it. Everything I built the first time is going to go. I really didn't like any of it. It was sort of the same issue I had down with the dock area. I really didn't know what I was going to build here, so it kind of just, no focus to it. So it really didn't work very well at all. For what I need to do, I'm going to raise the land up just a couple meters. I need it slightly higher than it is. I want to create a marina, so I need just enough elevation to create essentially a boardwalk here, not boardwalk, but a pedestrian walkway along the shoreline. What I'm going to be making is a little marina, so the rich people have some place to park their boats. I don't want this place to be a large town. It's just a small little community. It's going to have a dense little pocket of commercial buildings right along the waterfront, and then it's going to quickly turn into suburban housing. This is going to be a pretty quiet community. Rich people like their peace and quiet, so it's not going to be a high energy area by any means. wanted to give it a little bit of a feature here, so made an attempt to make a interesting looking park pretty much in the center of the community. This took a lot longer than it looks. I edited it down quite a bit. I spent quite a bit of time trying to get that to look right. So in this community, it's essentially going to be very well-off people. So the size of the properties are going to be quite large. The houses are going to be quite big for the most part, and it's going to look pretty exclusive. Clean up some of these nasty intersections. They're quite scary. And this is essentially going to be the road layout. It's nothing too complicated. I'm going to spend a bit of time here plopping down a few service buildings, just shuffling around the buildings that were already here, finding better locations for them. Right now I'm putting in a little park facility for all the schools that are over at this end, the elementary school, the high school, the private school up in the hill there. I'm not going to get into detailing much of this area in this episode. It's not the focus. I'll probably spend the next episode over at this area. I didn't really want to do this, but it seemed like there probably would be some sort of highway connection over here. I didn't want to connect it directly into the highway interchange that is just down there over there. And really it's just because I didn't really want the road to connect there. I'm very happy of how this whole area turned out, but my only criticism of it is the choice of buildings I used. It really does not look at all like a North American city. I can't think of anywhere on the West Coast that looks like this. It's just the assets that are available. I want something a little more small scale. For North American assets, we still don't have appropriate assets to create a small American town. So I used the ones I have. They look good. I mean, this is really, it turns out to be quite a charming area of the city. It's just not quite the vibe I want. So I think at a future date, I'm gonna probably come back here and probably switch out a few buildings just to kind of mellow out the European flavor just a little bit. I'm going to be using a lot of the Eastern European medium density housing here. We're going to give it a bit of recolor so it's something a bit more appropriate for our region. There's the French, one of the French low cost housing units going in. The great thing about the Eastern European buildings is in a North American context, you know, you put a bit of a recolor on the buildings, they look a little more high end than they might be in Eastern Europe. Now I'm going to create the Marina, and I'm going to be using Harbour Master J's prop pillars to achieve this. We're going to make a temporary work island out here off the shore and draw them out and drop them into place. and line them up. While working on this, I realized there was a bit of an issue. There's no way to actually access them, so I'm going to have to redo this all again. The lines on them make it very easy to line them all up. What I realized was with the key wall there with the guardrail, there was no access point. So we're going to make a slight little alteration here. I'm going to section off a chunk, and we're going to switch it out from the key wall to a retaining wall, which will get rid of the guardrail. But we do get this nasty little slope here. And I'm going to repeat this for the sections where I want there to be a walkway coming down to the marina. And put all the buildings back. Here I'm going to use the square prop pillars instead, and we're going to just drop these down, line them up with the edge of the retaining wall, like so. Now you can sort of see there's a bit of distortion there, there's a bit of a wiggle. It's sometimes there, sometimes not, so I don't know what's happening. From any bit of distance, it's not really all that noticeable, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And once again, I'm going to repeat this for all my access points. After that, I'm just going to move the docks back into place. The nice thing about using the prop pillars to create a marina is they don't have the guardrail around them like the pedestrian paths do. Now I'm using the prop variety here so they don't interact with the ground. You don't necessarily need the prop ones to create a marina. If it's over the water, they will just float there. They won't distort the ground. You just have to remember that wherever they come in contact with the ground, yeah, there's going to be a bit of distortion. So you have to compensate for that. But if it's just floating out over the water, they work quite fine. You don't need the prop variety for this. going to use a bit of pieces of fences to create the guardrails for this section. And use some shorter prop pillars to create a ramp, access ramp. I'm going to use some of Static Noise's wall decals here to create a stone dock. This looks so good, and the nice thing is the decals will interact with these pillars, so they will cover them. You can instantly transform this to look much different than what it actually is. This isn't helping the European vibe at all. For North America, that's, at least for the West Coast, stone docks like that are not really a thing. I'm going to use a slightly different stone wall texture for the sides, just to give it a bit of contrast. And like I said, the docks for the marina are simply prop pillars, just sunk down to the level of the water. For the shorter sections of the dock, I'm going to be using the prop pedestrian pillars. Now, the nice thing about these is they have this nice rounded edge on them. Also, the other nice thing is they have these very convenient little decorative lines in them that make it very easy to line things up in a very nice way. And if you really particular about things being nice and square, makes it very easy. And for no reason at all, I'm just going to stick a cemetery up here on the hillside. Unfortunately, this became quite a bit of a distraction. I'm not going to focus on it here. We're going to leave that to the next episode. But yeah, things took a lot longer simply because messing around with that. Now I'm going to be hand placing some of the larger level 5 homes here to create my very exclusive rich neighborhood. I'm just looking for the largest houses possible, not always, but have a preference here for larger homes. The houses in the UK pack are very good for this. The Eastern European assets here, they look like they could easily stand in for very large mansions. We're going to give them a bit of recolor just to make them work for our area a bit more. But yeah, by themselves, they look like very large estate houses. And it's a sneaky way to sneak extra population into an area because they hold quite a few people. I'm also going to use some Japanese medium density homes here to indicate some more recent developments in the community. And once again, I am lacking elementary. It seems to be, I'm not sure if it's a bug, but it seems the more elementary you add, the more you need. It's like a vicious cycle you can't win. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Out towards the schools, the properties are going to get smaller and the houses are going to get a little more compact. Still very exclusive, rich neighborhood. It's just, the not so rich people. I'm also going to throw in a few Japanese homes just for a bit of variety. Now, believe it or not, this particular section of the build, where all these rich people live, this is not the main focus of this episode. This is essentially background. So it's not going to be particularly high detailed. I'm also not going to spend a huge amount of time on it. It's there to be the backdrop for the private islands and the massive mansions up on the hillsides, like the one I'm putting in right now. And for the marina. I'm going to be using a fair number of signature homes in around here. We don't have any options for really, unique estates or anything like that. So I'm going to use them at will. Also, the bonuses, they incur on the area will stack and help it maintain that kind of rich, wealthy vibe. I do want a few higher buildings just to give a bit of elevation to the town, so it's not just completely flat when you're looking at it edge on. I'm going to be doing a fair amount of terraforming around some of these coastal areas. This is really my first attempt at really detailing an actual coastal area of the map, so I had to figure out a few new things. I think it turned out quite well, actually, in the end. Oops. Oh dear. That sometimes happens, and it's very annoying. I realized when I was using this type of brush to try to change that landscape, it actually was really good at creating little tidal pools, which I didn't really explore very much here, but something for other areas on the map. I have to keep that in mind. Okay, our private islands. For the private islands, the game has no mechanics to support individual properties out on little islands like this, so all of this has to be created with props. I don't think the game would ever support mechanics for this. I really wanted to use this really large pool. Unfortunately, it has a fence around it, which made no sense out here. So we have to go with one of these little rinky-dinky little pools, which I think these rich people would be totally disappointed in. We're going to use this one. I'm going to be using prop pillars to fill in some of these gaps. We have this foundation texture or whatever that is. We have to figure out how to disguise that because it doesn't look particularly good, and you can't detail it. Decals and stuff don't stick to it. So I'm going to be using prop pillars to do this. This seemed like a perfect location to put in a little stairway. And the stone wall decals stick to these surfaces just fine. So we're going to redo them. The problem with the stone wall decals is they do tend to bleed. It's how they are able to kind of do what they do. So you see them kind of creeping up the walls there and stuff. So for really close-up work, this might not be suitable, but from a farther back viewing distance, you don't really notice it, so it's okay. But yeah, if you're doing close-up work, this might not work. And like I was saying, I'm just going to use the prop pillars to hide this foundation material. And now that it's hidden, we can use the wall decals to disguise it a bit more. There are a couple, like right in here, that's not that great. There is no pillar short enough to hide that, so it was a bit of an issue. For the larger walls, it works quite well. But there are a few, awkward points on it, like on the ground there. You see how it's bleeding onto the ground. So we're going to use bushes and trees and rocks and stuff to hide some of the imperfections so we don't have to see them. I'm going to be using the prop pillars to create kind of this expansive patio area along the beachfront. Like these private properties on these little tiny islands, they're a bit of a fantasy. The reality of them is they'd have no power. there'd be no water. So there'd be significant issues having a large property out here. Now, if they're really rich, they could probably have those like fuel barged in, water barged in. Ideally, I didn't think about this until after I finished the build, there might be solar panels, although in the Pacific Northwest, solar is not going to be very helpful to you. But there definitely probably would have been a water tank here as well to probably collect rainwater for uses around the property. I didn't think about that till after I was finished, but those are things to consider. There's tons of little islands in this region with little tiny cabins on them, and the cabins are just simply like for, you know, staying for a weekend or something, simply because there's no water on these little islands. So yeah, long-term living on these places would be difficult. So what I created here is, you know, obviously a little bit of a fantasy. I found these kicking around in my hard drive. Now, these are some assets that were downloaded from the Thunderstore way back when. I can't even remember who actually made them now. I think they're Bromans. I'm not 100% sure. It was just a collection of rock surfaces. And Thunderstore mods are incompatible with the PDX mod store, so they didn't work. I had to kind of go in and reconstruct them. So these are great. I don't know why I can think of why they haven't shown up in the PDX store. Loading assets and mods up to that thing is still in beta, and it can be a real pain in the butt, especially if you don't know any coding. I've had personal experience with it, so I can see why they're not back in. I wish more assets like this would appear in the mod store. More surfaces are always, you know, needed in this game, and we got an initial burst of them early on, and then nothing since. And I was always hoping more of them would show up, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Everybody seems to be waiting for the asset editor to come out, which who knows when that's going to happen. One issue, I didn't even realize it until I did it here, that the biggest problem with the coastal area is I don't have proper trees. I mean, sure, I have the fir and pine trees, they're fine. Right on the coast, you have these exposed areas with like, you know, like really severe storms and wind and stuff blow in the wintertime, and it really takes a toll on the trees, and they have this windswept kind of appearance to them. This is kind of a sheltered bay, so it's a bit of a stretch right in here, but you know, some really old gnarly trees right on the coastline, and I just like, oh wait a minute, I could just kill a pine tree and just stick these bushes to it, and it works. It's obviously kind of a finicky thing to actually have to put into place, but there's nothing hard about it. And I imagine it would work with any of the other trees if they were dead. You'd obviously different effects, but this would be an interesting way to increase the variety of trees. I mean, I don't think you'd want to do this maybe with the copy mod. It would make it easy, but creating them by hand is, yeah, it's a little bit of work. It's this step here I'm doing where packing the fir trees in really dense on the island. It really just instantly transforms this to something you would see on the Pacific Northwest. This is, for my first attempt detailing a coastal area, I couldn't be happier with that. That looks just incredible. These grass deckles from Static Noise also on top of the rocky surface. It could be moss, it could be slimy algae, it could be all sorts of things, which is also just amazing. With these stone surfaces, I've been attempting for a while now and not being successful, but I was wanting to use them for the mountaintops to, make really distinct mountains, and it's been kind of a bit of a failure. I never thought of using them for rock outcroppings on the shoreline, but they work so well for that. I'm also going to include a smaller vacation home on a smaller island, so not nearly as ritzy as the other one. Still, obviously by this house, still pretty high end, but not as much. And rather than stone patios, we're going to go with wooden patio and wooden docks for this one, and using the carport for this. Now this has all sorts of, I can think of all sorts of uses for these prop buildings, up on hillsides, jutting out from the hillside, and using the carports to create the decks that kind of go out from there. This kind of gets around the issue of we having about houses on hills, not, the way they interact with the terrain. This is a great workaround. Unfortunately, these are just props and they won't function in game, but, the odd one around just for decorative purposes, obviously, but just to give your area a bit of flair, I think that's fine. I'm using some of Harbour Master J's wooden stairs here for the transitions between the different heights. This house isn't going to be as detailed as the other one. Just the decks, a few patio chairs, and a table, and that's it. I'm going to be doing a bit of this detailing throughout most of the map, or the coastal areas of the map. Obviously it just looks too good. I could think of a lot of different ways I could use this on coastal areas to really sell the Pacific Northwest. I think it's night and day how it looks. One thing we have to remember, being directly on the coast like this, is it is going to be wet here. Like, I know I don't play with the rain on. Playing with the rain on is just awful experience, but the reality of this area would be it would be drenched in water many months out of the year. Vegetation is going to be packed in really dense. It's literally trees growing on top of trees around here. And now I'm going to spend some time detailing in and around the town itself. Now I have a name for the town, in case anybody's wondering. I'm going to get into that in the next episode. For this little city park down here, I wanted to create a little like fake pond. I'm going to use the water surfaces and a path. With the path, I'm going to use the retaining wall, so I get this little like raised edge around the inner length of it, and then trace out the water surface. And I thought that was a little too dark, so I went for this lighter translucent one, which actually allows you to see a bit of the ground underneath, which is interesting. The water effect is not quite as strong, but I kept it. And put a little decorative fountain in the center. And spent a bit of time integrating it with the surrounding landscape. Now, I'm not saying they cut down all the trees around their houses just to get the view. That they wouldn't do that. That's not right, but okay, to kind of create these wealthy estates in town, it's really pretty simple. I'm just going to go through, delete away the existing fences and hedges, and delete away the lawns, and draw in my own. Just like I'm going to do right here. This allows me to give these buildings the appearance of being very large estates. Like I said, this bit of detailing isn't really the main part of the episode. It's the marina and the private islands. This is just the backdrop. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here focused on the detailing. I'm just going to show you enough so you see what I'm doing. It's essentially just like establishing the size of the properties, putting in lawns and trees, fences, filling in the pavement for the parking lots where I forgot to do it, you know, just polishing everything up. To be honest, it's a pretty repetitive task. You know, once you see a few examples of it, and yeah, it's literally the same thing over and over again. With a bit of recolor, these buildings can look like pretty much anything, to be honest. And I don't need the construction island anymore, so we can get rid of that. This little park was looking a little too much like the Eye of Sauron, so I decided to change it out a little bit. Maybe that's what the locals can refer to this park as, the Eye. The bollards are also by Harbor Master J. And these little boat assets are by Crypto Gamer. These can be found on Sully's Discord if you're interested. They're local install. To be honest, they're pretty easy. It's just basically dropping a file in a folder. Nothing really to it. There might be issues with these with the release of with the proper asset editor. You might want to keep in mind a lot of these things might break, so it's a bit of a gamble using them, but I think for the aesthetics it's more than worth it. And we're just going to give the boats a bit of a recolor just so they look a little more interesting than white. This also might push the European flavor of the town a little bit too much as well. This would be like luxury yachts and sailboats if this was the Pacific Northwest. And that brings us to the end of this episode. This has certainly been a lot of fun. I've had so much fun detailing the coastal areas here, and I'm looking forward to doing much more of it in the future. We've got quite a lot of coastline to work through. Lots of small communities dotted all through that, so lots more to come. If you have stuck around to the very end, thank you so much. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.